Rachel's feet were killing her. 14 hours. That's how long she'd been on them today. And the cheap shoes she'd bought from the discount store 3 months ago were practically falling apart. She could feel a blister forming on her left heel, but there was nothing she could do about it now. The train station was just ahead, and all she wanted was to get home. The November wind cut through her thin jacket as she walked through the station doors. She should have worn something warmer, but her winter coat had a broken zipper, and she hadn't had time to fix it. Time. That was something she never seemed to have enough of these days. She found an empty bench near platform 3 and finally sat down. The relief was immediate. Around her, people rushed past with their briefcases and fancy coffee cups, heading home to their comfortable lives. Rachel tried not to think about that. Comparison was a thief of joy, her mother used to say. Right now, she didn't have much joy to steal. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen, her neighbor who watched Lily after school. Lily's fine. She finished her homework. Don't rush. Rachel smiled. Mrs. Chen was a blessing. The elderly woman refused to take payment for watching her 8-year-old daughter, saying that Lily kept her company. Rachel tried to help her with groceries whenever she could, though that wasn't very often these days. She pulled out her wallet. It was time to face the reality she'd been avoiding all day. Inside were 2 $5 bills. $10. That was everything she had until Friday, and today was only Tuesday. Rachel closed her eyes and did the math in her head. Lily needed lunch money for the rest of the week. That was $3 per day, so $9. The bus fare home tonight was $2.50. That left nothing. Actually, that left her short by $1.50. Great, she whispered to herself. She could walk home. It would take about 40 minutes and her feet were screaming at her already, but it was possible. That would save the bus fare. But then what about tomorrow? And the day after? A young couple walked past her, laughing about something. The woman was carrying shopping bags from expensive stores. Rachel looked away. She wasn't jealous, not really. She was just tired. So incredibly tired. It hadn't always been like this. 3 years ago, she'd had a decent job at a medical office. Nothing fancy, but it paid the bills. Then her ex-husband left and the bills became her problem alone. Then Lily's asthma got worse and the medical costs started piling up. Then her car died and she couldn't afford to fix it. It was like dominoes falling one after another until she was here, sitting on a cold bench trying to figure out how to make $10 last 3 days. She worked 2 jobs now. During the day, she was a nurse's aide at a care facility. The work was hard, physically and emotionally, but she liked helping people. At night, 3 times a week, she cleaned offices in the business district. That job she didn't like, but it paid the bills. Barely. Rachel opened her wallet again and stared at the 2 bills. Maybe she could ask her supervisor for an advance on her paycheck. But she'd done that last month and the month before. There was only so many times you could ask before people started looking at you differently. She thought about her daughter. Lily was the reason she kept going. That little girl deserved better than this. She deserved a mother who wasn't always exhausted. Who could afford to buy her new shoes when she needed them? Who could say yes to the occasional ice cream without checking her bank account first? Last week, Lily's school had sent home a form for a field trip to the Science Museum. $25. Rachel had wanted to cry when she saw it. She'd told Lily they'd have to wait and see, which was mother code for we can't afford it. Lily had just nodded and smiled and said it was okay. That smile had broken Rachel's heart. You're a good kid, Rachel had told her that night while tucking her into bed. You're a good mom, Lily had replied. Rachel didn't feel like a good mom. Good moms could provide field trip money. The station was getting busier now as the evening rush continued. Rachel checked her phone. Her train would arrive in 10 minutes. She should probably go to the platform, but her feet needed just a few more minutes of rest. That's when she noticed him. An older man, maybe in his 60s, was sitting 2 benches away. He looked out of place. His suit was too big for him, hanging off his shoulders like it belonged to someone else. He had no coat, no bag, nothing. His hands were shaking as he patted his pockets over and over, searching for something that clearly wasn't there. Rachel watched him for a moment. He looked lost. No, worse than lost. He looked desperate. The man stood up suddenly, almost stumbling. He walked a few steps toward the ticket counter, then stopped. He put his hand on the wall as if he needed support. Rachel could see his chest rising and falling rapidly. Something was wrong. She should mind her own business. She had enough problems. $10. 3 days. A daughter waiting at home, but she couldn't look away. The man turned, and for just a second their eyes met. His face was pale, and she could see fear there. Real fear. The kind that comes when you're truly in trouble and don't know what to do. Rachel looked down at her wallet. At her last $10, this was stupid. She couldn't help everyone. She couldn't even help herself most days. The man stumbled again. "Excuse me." Rachel heard herself calling out before she could stop herself. "Sir, are you okay?" He turned to look at her, his eyes confused. I need to get to Boston." "My daughter. There's an emergency." His voice was shaking. Rachel stood up, her aching feet forgotten. "Do you have a ticket?" she asked gently. He shook his head. "I had my wallet. I can't remember. Everything's confused. I just know I need to get to Boston. My daughter called. She needs me." Other people were walking past them, giving the man a wide berth. Some looked at him with suspicion. Others with pity. No one stopped. Rachel moved closer. The man smelled like he hadn't showered in days, and his clothes were wrinkled and stained. But his eyes. When she looked into his eyes, she saw a father worried about his child. She understood that feeling. "When did you last eat?" she asked. I don't remember." Rachel opened her wallet. The 2 $5 bills seemed to stare back at her. She thought about Lily, about the lunch money, about walking home in the cold. She thought about what kind of person she wanted to be. What kind of person she wanted Lily to grow up to be. "Here," Rachel said, holding out one of the $5 bills. Then before she could change her mind, she pulled out the other one too. "Take this. It's not much, but you can get something to eat and maybe use the phone to call someone." The man stared at the money like he couldn't believe it was real. I can't take your money. Please," Rachel said. "You need help. Let me help. But you—" He looked at her worn shoes, her thin jacket. He wasn't stupid. He could see she didn't have much either. "I'll be fine," Rachel lied. "But you won't be if you don't eat something and figure out how to get to your daughter. Take it." Slowly, with trembling hands, the man took the money. A tear rolled down his cheek. "Thank you," he whispered. "You have no idea what this means." Rachel smiled, even though inside she was already panicking about how she'd manage the next 3 days. "Go get some food. There's a help desk over there. They might be able to help you figure out how to reach your daughter." She watched as the man walked away, steadier now that he had a plan. Her train was approaching the platform. She'd have to walk home now, in the dark, in the cold, with blistered feet and an empty wallet. But somehow, despite everything, she didn't regret it. Not even a little bit. Rachel's train pulled away from the platform without her. She watched it go, the warm lights inside showing tired commuters in their seats, heading home to dinner and television and normal lives. She turned away and started walking toward the station exit. The cold hit her immediately. It was fully dark now, and the temperature had dropped even more. Rachel pulled her jacket tighter, even though she knew it wouldn't help much. 40 minutes. She could do this. She'd done harder things. Her phone rang just as she stepped onto the sidewalk. "Mrs. Chen, I'm on my way," Rachel said before the older woman could ask. "I'll be there in about 40 minutes. 40 minutes? Why so long? Is the train delayed?" Rachel hesitated. She didn't want to explain. "Just walking tonight. Getting some exercise." There was a pause on the other end. Mrs. Chen wasn't fooled, but she was kind enough not to push. "Take your time, dear. Lily and I are watching that baking show. She wants to make cupcakes this weekend." "Sounds good," Rachel said, her voice catching slightly. She couldn't afford baking supplies either. The walk home took her through parts of the city she usually avoided at night. Under the overpass where homeless people gathered around barrel fires, past the convenience store with bars on the windows, through the park that was beautiful in daylight but felt threatening in the dark. Rachel kept her head up and walked with purpose. Looking confident was half the battle. Nobody bothered people who looked like they knew where they were going. Her feet hurt worse with every step. That blister had definitely popped. She could feel the raw skin rubbing against her shoe. But she kept walking. What choice did she have? She thought about the man at the station. She didn't even know his name. What if he wasn't really in trouble? What if he'd lied to her? What if he took that money and bought drugs or alcohol instead of food? Rachel shook her head. No, she'd look into his eyes. That fear had been real. The confusion had been real. Something had happened to him and he'd needed help. Besides, it didn't matter now. The money was gone. Second guessing wouldn't bring it back. She passed a restaurant with warm light spilling onto the sidewalk. Through the window, she could see families eating dinner together. A little girl about Lily's age was laughing at something her father said. Rachel felt a sharp pain in her chest that had nothing to do with the cold. Lily's father hadn't called in 6 months. No birthday card. No Christmas present last year. Nothing. Just gone like they'd never mattered at all. Rachel walked faster. 25 minutes into her walk, it started to rain. Not a heavy rain, just a cold drizzle that soaked through everything slowly. Rachel's jacket was already damp and her hair was plastered to her face. She wanted to cry, but she was too tired even for that. A car drove past, splashing water from a puddle. It soaked her jeans from the knee down. Perfect, she muttered. Just perfect. She was still 15 minutes from Mrs. Chen's apartment. Her teeth were chattering now. The blister on her heel felt like someone was jabbing it with a knife every time she took a step. This was rock bottom, Rachel thought. This was what it felt like when everything went wrong at once. When one small act of kindness cost you everything. But even as she thought it, she knew she'd do it again. That man's face kept appearing in her mind. The terror in his eyes when he talked about his daughter. What if that had been her? What if something happened to Lily and Rachel was stuck somewhere without help? She'd want someone to help her. Even if they only had $10. Even if it meant they had to walk home in the rain. By the time Rachel reached Mrs. Chen's building, she was shivering uncontrollably. She climbed the 3 flights of stairs slowly, holding onto the railing with each step. Her wet clothes clung to her skin. She knocked on apartment 3B. Mrs. Chen opened the door and gasped. "Rachel, oh sweetheart, you're soaked. Come in, come in." "I'm sorry I'm late," Rachel said through chattering teeth. "Mom." Lily came running from the living room and stopped short when she saw her mother. "Mom, what happened? Why are you all wet?" "Just got caught in the rain," Rachel said, trying to smile. "No big deal." Mrs. Chen was already moving. She disappeared into her bedroom and returned with towels and a dry sweater. "You change in the bathroom right now. I'll make tea." "Lily, honey, get your things." Rachel wanted to protest, but Mrs. Chen gave her a look that said there would be no argument. She took the towels and sweater and went to the bathroom. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Her mascara had run, leaving dark circles under her eyes. Her lips were slightly blue. Her hair hung in wet strings around her face. She looked like someone who'd given up. But she hadn't given up. She'd just had a really, really bad day. She dried off and changed into Mrs. Chen's sweater. It was soft and warm and smelled like lavender. For a moment, Rachel let herself close her eyes and just feel the warmth. When she came out, Mrs. Chen had tea waiting and had wrapped her wet clothes in a plastic bag. Lily was sitting at the table with her backpack, watching her mother with worried eyes. "Drink this," Mrs. Chen commanded, pushing a cup of hot tea into Rachel's hands. Rachel drank. The warmth spread through her body, chasing away some of the cold. "Now," Mrs. Chen said, sitting down across from her, "are you going to tell me what really happened, or do I have to guess?" Rachel glanced at Lily. "Baby, can you wait by the door for just a minute? I need to talk to Mrs. Chen." Lily looked between them but nodded and took her backpack to the door. "I gave away my last $10, Rachel said quietly. "There was a man at the station. He was in trouble. He needed to get to his daughter, but he had nothing. No wallet, no phone, nothing. And I couldn't walk away." Mrs. Chen didn't say anything for a long moment. Then she reached out and patted Rachel's hand. "That was a kind thing you did." "It was a stupid thing," Rachel said. "Now I don't have lunch money for Lily or bus fare, or anything until Friday." "It wasn't stupid," Mrs. Chen said firmly. "Kindness is never stupid." She stood up and went to her purse. Before Rachel could protest, she pulled out $20 and set it on the table. "Mrs. Chen, no. I can't." "You can and you will," the older woman interrupted. "You helped someone who needed it. Now let someone help you. That's how it works." Rachel felt tears burning her eyes. "I'll pay you back. You'll do no such thing. You'll pay it forward when you can. That's all." The walk home with Lily took another 10 minutes. The rain had stopped, and Rachel carried her daughter on her back part of the way, even though her feet screamed in protest. Lily chattered about her day at school, about the baking show, about her friend who had a new puppy. Rachel listened and made the right sounds in the right places, but her mind was elsewhere. She was thinking about Mrs. Chen's words, pay it forward. Such a simple idea. Help someone because someone helped you. Their apartment was small and drafty, but it was home. Rachel made grilled cheese sandwiches for dinner, the last of the bread and cheese. Tomorrow she'd need to go grocery shopping, but Mrs. Chen's $20 would help. While Lily ate, she told Rachel about her day, about how she'd gotten an A on her spelling test, about how the teacher said she was doing really well in math. "I'm proud of you, baby," Rachel said, and meant it. After dinner, bath time, and teeth brushing, Rachel tucked Lily into bed. The little girl looked up at her with serious eyes. "Mom, why were you all wet today?" Rachel brushed hair off Lily's forehead. "I helped someone who needed it, and then I had to walk in the rain. But it was worth it. Was the person okay?" "I hope so, baby. I really hope so." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "At school they teach us about being kind, about helping people. You did that today, right?" Rachel felt her throat tighten. "I tried to." "Then you're a good person," Lily said simply. "That's what matters." Rachel kissed her daughter's forehead. "Go to sleep, sweetheart. I love you." "Love you too, Mom." After Lily fell asleep, Rachel sat at their tiny kitchen table and looked at Mrs. Chen's $20. Such a small amount of money, really. But right now it felt like a fortune. She thought about the man at the station. Was he okay? Had he found help? Had he made it to his daughter? She'd never know. He'd disappeared into the city and she'd never see him again. That's how these things went. You helped someone and then they were gone and you never knew if it made a difference. But it had to make a difference, didn't it? It had to mean something. Rachel pulled out a piece of paper and did the math for the week. With the $20 from Mrs. Chen, she could make it to Friday. Barely. It would be tight, but they'd survive. They always did. She looked around their small apartment. The peeling paint on the walls, the secondhand furniture, the heating that never worked quite right. This wasn't the life she'd dreamed of when she was young. But it was her life, and she was doing the best she could. And today, even though it had cost her everything, she'd helped someone. She'd seen a person in need and chosen kindness over convenience. That had to count for something. Rachel turned off the light and went to bed, her feet throbbing, her body exhausted. Tomorrow would be another long day. But tonight, despite everything, she felt a tiny spark of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. She'd done the right thing. Even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard, that was worth something. Even if she never saw that man again. Even if nothing came of it. Being kind was its own reward. Or so she told herself as she fell into an exhausted sleep, not knowing that everything was about to change. 4 days passed. 4 long, difficult days where Rachel stretched every dollar, skipped meals, and pretended everything was fine. By Saturday morning, she was counting down the hours until her paycheck would hit her bank account on Monday. Lily was at a friend's birthday party, another mother having offered to pick her up and drop her off. Rachel was grateful. It meant she could clean the apartment and maybe take a nap without feeling guilty. She was scrubbing the kitchen sink when someone knocked on her door. Rachel dried her hands and looked through the peephole. A man in a business suit stood in the hallway holding a manila envelope. He looked official, professional, completely out of place in her run-down building. Her stomach dropped. Official-looking men with envelopes meant bills, eviction notices, court summons. Nothing good. She opened the door but kept the chain lock on. "Can I help you?" The man smiled politely. "Are you Rachel Torres?" "Who's asking?" "My name is Peter Hayes. I'm an attorney with Wellington and Associates. I have something for you from a client." He held up the envelope. "May I come in for a moment?" An attorney? Rachel's mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. Had her ex-husband done something? Was she being sued for a medical bill she couldn't pay? "What's this about?" she asked, not moving to unlock the chain. "I promise you, Ms. Torres, this is good news. My client wanted me to deliver this to you personally." He was very insistent about that. Good news from attorneys didn't exist in Rachel's world. But the man seemed genuine, and curiosity was getting the better of her fear. She closed the door, unhooked the chain, and opened it again. 5 minutes, she said. Peter Hayes stepped inside and looked around the small apartment politely, not letting his eyes linger on the worn furniture or the crack in the ceiling. He was too professional for that. "Please sit down," Rachel said, gesturing to the couch. They both sat. Peter placed the envelope on the coffee table between them. "4 days ago, you were at the Central Station. You helped a man who was in distress. Do you remember?" Rachel's heart started beating faster. "The man without his wallet, is he okay? Did something happen to him?" "He's fine, thanks to you. More than fine, actually. His name is Robert Wellington, and he asked me to give you this." Peter pushed the envelope toward her. Rachel stared at it like it might explode. "What is it?" "Open it and see." With shaking hands, Rachel picked up the envelope. Inside was a check and a letter. She pulled out the check first, and her vision blurred. The numbers didn't make sense. They couldn't be real. $50,000. "There's been a mistake," she whispered. "There's no mistake," Peter said gently. "That check is real and it's yours. Mr. Wellington wanted you to have it. But I don't understand. I gave him $10. Just $10. Read the letter," Peter suggested. Rachel's hands were shaking so badly she could barely unfold the paper. The handwriting was neat, older looking. She started to read. "Dear Rachel, you don't know me, but 4 days ago you saved my life. I'm not being dramatic when I say that. Without your help, I don't know what would have happened to me. Let me tell you who I am and what happened that night. My name is Robert Wellington. I'm the founder of Wellington Medical Technologies. You've probably never heard of it, but we make equipment for hospitals. For the past year, I've been involved in a legal case against my former CFO who stole millions from the company. The trial has been stressful and long. That Tuesday, I had to testify in court in the city. The testimony was brutal. They questioned everything, trying to make me look incompetent. By the time I left the courthouse, I wasn't feeling well. I have a heart condition, and stress is my trigger. I remember feeling chest pain on the street. I remember someone bumping into me hard. Later, I realized they'd taken my wallet, my phone, everything. In my confusion and pain, I made it to the train station somehow. I just knew I needed to get to Boston. My daughter had called me that morning to tell me she was having emergency surgery. I needed to be there, but I had nothing. No way to call anyone. No way to buy a ticket or even a bottle of water for my medication. I could feel myself spiraling, panicking. People walked past me like I was invisible. Some looked at me with disgust. I was just another homeless person to them. Then you spoke to me. You saw me as a human being. You gave me your last $10, and yes, I knew it was your last. I saw your wallet. I saw your worn shoes and thin jacket. I understood that you had given me everything you had. With that money, I bought my heart medication from the station pharmacy and used the payphone to call my driver. He came and got me. I made it to Boston in time to be with my daughter before her surgery. She's fine now, by the way, recovering beautifully. I've thought about you every day since then. I had my team track you down. I hope you don't mind. Security cameras, credit cards used near the station around that time, some old-fashioned detective work. I needed to find you. I needed to thank you properly. The check in this envelope is not charity. It's not even really a thank you, because no amount of money can repay what you did. You showed me that kindness still exists, that people still help each other even when it costs them everything. Please accept this money. Use it to make your life easier. Take care of your daughter. Take care of yourself. You deserve good things, Rachel. People like you make the world worth living in. If you're willing, I would like to meet you in person. My attorney has my contact information. I promise I'm not a creep. Just an old man who wants to properly thank the woman who saved him. With deepest gratitude, Robert Wellington. Rachel read the letter 3 times. Her hands were still shaking. Tears were streaming down her face. "This can't be real," she said finally. Peter smiled. "It's real. Mr. Wellington is a good man. What you did for him that night meant more than you know. But $50,000? That's insane. Mr. Wellington is worth considerably more than that," Peter said carefully. "To him, this is a drop in the bucket. To you, he hopes it's a new beginning." Rachel looked at the check again. $50,000. She could pay off her debts, fix her car, move to a better apartment, put money aside for Lily's future. She wouldn't have to work 2 jobs anymore. She could breathe. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. Mr. Wellington doesn't expect anything from you, but he would like to meet you, if you're comfortable with that. He's staying at the Peninsula Hotel downtown. Here's his direct number. Peter handed her a business card. After Peter left, Rachel sat on her couch for a long time, staring at the check and letter. Part of her thought she might wake up and discover this was all a dream. $50,000, just for being kind. She thought about calling someone, Mrs. Chen, her sister, but she couldn't form the words yet. This was too big, too overwhelming. The check was real. She could feel the weight of the paper. See the official bank logos. This wasn't a scam. This wasn't a joke. She'd given a stranger her last $10, and now that stranger had given her a completely new life. Rachel started to laugh. Then cry, then laugh again. She put her face in her hands and just let herself feel everything. Shock, disbelief, relief, joy, and a strange kind of grief for how hard everything had been. That night, after Lily came home from the party exhausted and happy, Rachel tucked her into bed and held her tight. "Mom, you're squishing me," Lily giggled. "Sorry, baby. Just love you so much. Love you too." "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," Rachel said, and for the first time in years she meant it. "Everything's right. I'll explain tomorrow. But tonight I just want you to know that good things can happen, even when you think they never will." "Good things can still happen, because of kindness?" Lily asked. Rachel thought about Robert Wellington, about his daughter's surgery, about the moment she'd decided to help a stranger even though she couldn't afford it. "Yeah, baby," she said softly, "because of kindness." The next morning, Rachel called the number on the business card. A man answered on the second ring. "This is Robert Wellington." "Mr. Wellington?" This is Rachel. "Rachel Torres." There was a pause, then a warm voice said, "Rachel, thank you so much for calling. I've been hoping to hear from you." "I don't know what to say. The check, the letter, everything. It's too much." "It's not nearly enough," Robert said. "Would you be willing to meet me? I'd like to talk to you in person if you're comfortable with that. You can bring your daughter if you'd like. Or a friend. Whatever makes you feel safe." Rachel thought about it. Part of her was still suspicious. Rich men didn't just give away $50,000. But the letter had been so genuine. And Peter had seemed legitimate. "Okay," she said finally. "When? Are you free this afternoon? We could meet at the hotel restaurant. It's public, lots of people around." That afternoon, Rachel put on her best outfit, which still wasn't very good, and took Lily with her to the Peninsula Hotel. The building was enormous and intimidating, all marble and chandeliers and people in expensive clothes. "Wow," Lily whispered. "This place is fancy." A man stood up from a table near the window. He was older, maybe mid-60s, with gray hair and kind eyes. He looked different from the confused, desperate person she'd met at the station. Clean, healthy, put together, but those eyes were the same. "Rachel?" he asked. She nodded. Robert Wellington smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "You have no idea how good it is to see you again. And this must be Lily." "How did you know my name?" Lily asked. "Your mom told me about you," Robert said. "She told me you were smart and kind and the most important person in her world." Rachel didn't remember saying that, but maybe she had. She'd been in shock that night. They sat down and Robert ordered food, more food than Rachel had seen in months. While they ate, he told them his story. About his company, about the trial, about his daughter's emergency surgery, about how Rachel's $10 had probably saved his life. "The doctor said if I'd waited much longer to take my medication, I could have had a full heart attack," Robert explained. "Those $10 bought me time. Quite literally." "I'm just glad you're okay," Rachel said. "I'm more than okay. And now I want to help make sure you're okay too." That's when Robert explained his real plan. The $50,000 was just the beginning. He wanted to pay for Rachel to go to nursing school. She'd mentioned that dream once years ago when things were different. He wanted to set up a college fund for Lily. He wanted to help them move to a better apartment. "This is too much," Rachel kept saying. "I just gave you $10. Anyone would have done the same." "But they didn't," Robert said firmly. "Dozens of people walked past me that night. Only you stopped. Only you helped. That means something." By the end of the lunch, Rachel's head was spinning. Robert had written down everything. Schools she could apply to, financial advisors who could help her, his personal number in case she needed anything. As they were leaving, Robert said, Rachel, you gave me something more valuable than money. You gave me hope. Let me give you the same thing, please. Rachel looked at Lily, who was looking at her with huge, hopeful eyes. She thought about the past 3 years. The struggle, the exhaustion, the constant fear of not having enough. She thought about one mom. And at a train station when she'd chosen kindness over self-preservation. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, thank you, Robert smiled. No, Rachel. Thank you. The first thing Rachel did with the money was cry, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of knowing she could finally breathe. For 3 years, she'd been holding her breath, waiting for the next disaster. Now, for the first time, she could exhale. The second thing she did was pay off her debts, medical bills, credit card balances, the back rent she'd been negotiating with her landlord. All of it. Gone. The feeling of writing those checks, of actually being able to write those checks, was indescribable. You're all settled up, her landlord said, looking at the payment with surprise. Did you win the lottery or something? Something like that, Rachel said with a smile. But it wasn't the money that changed everything. It was what came after. 2 weeks after meeting Robert, Rachel found herself sitting in his downtown office. It was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. She felt small and out of place in her discount store clothes. Thanks for coming, Robert said, gesturing to a chair. I wanted to talk to you about something. Rachel sat nervously. Even though Robert had been nothing but kind, she still couldn't shake the feeling that this was all temporary. That someone would realize a mistake had been made and take it all back. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, Robert continued. About how you helped me when you had nothing to give. It made me realize something. I've spent my whole life building a company, making money, being successful. But I'm not sure I've actually made a difference. Your company makes medical equipment, Rachel said. Of course you make a difference, Robert shook his head. That's business. I'm talking about real difference. Personal difference. The kind you made for me. He pulled out some papers and slid them across the desk. I want to start a foundation, a scholarship fund for people like you. Single parents working multiple jobs, trying to go to school, trying to build better lives. I want to call it the Second Chance Foundation. Rachel looked at the papers. They were incorporation documents, official looking and serious. That's amazing, she said. But what does this have to do with me? I want you to help me run it, Rachel laughed. She couldn't help it. Mr. Wellington, I clean offices at night. I don't know anything about running a foundation. You know exactly what people need because you've been there. You understand the struggle in a way I never could. My accountants and lawyers can handle the paperwork. I need someone who has a heart. Someone who sees people the way you saw me. I don't have a degree. I don't have experience. You have something better. You have empathy. And you're going to nursing school, right? You can do both. Part-time at the foundation, helping me choose scholarship recipients, sharing your story, showing people that it's possible to come back from rock bottom. Rachel stared at him. You're serious. Completely serious. Think about it. No pressure. But I really believe you're the right person for this. That night, Rachel told Mrs. Chen everything over tea. The older woman listened quietly, nodding occasionally, saying nothing until Rachel finished. So, Rachel asked, what do you think? Is this crazy? Mrs. Chen smiled. I think that man sees what I've always seen in you. Strength, kindness, the ability to keep going even when everything is hard. Why wouldn't you do this? Because I'm not qualified. Because I'm scared I'll mess it up. Because people like me don't get opportunities like this. People like you? Mrs. Chen raised an eyebrow. You mean people who work 2 jobs to support their children? People who give away their last dollar to help a stranger? Those kind of people? Rachel laughed despite herself. When you put it that way, Rachel, dear, you've spent years believing you weren't enough. Maybe it's time to start believing you are. The next day, Rachel called Robert and accepted his offer. 3 months later, Rachel was enrolled in nursing school and working 15 hours a week at the Second Chance Foundation. It was overwhelming and terrifying and the best thing she'd ever done. She and Lily had moved to a new apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was clean and safe and warm. Lily had her own room for the first time in her life. The little girl had cried when she saw it. It's purple, Lily had exclaimed, looking at the walls Rachel had painted her favorite color. Mom, it's actually purple. Rachel's nursing classes were harder than she'd expected. She hadn't been in school in over a decade, and her brain felt rusty. She struggled with anatomy and medical terminology. Some nights she stayed up until 2 in the morning studying, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. But then she'd go to the foundation office and meet the scholarship applicants. Single mothers like her, people working 3 jobs, veterans trying to start over. Each story reminded her why she was doing this. One day a young woman came in for an interview. Her name was Kate, and she was 23 with 2 kids. She wanted to be a dental hygienist but couldn't afford school. "I work at a grocery store during the day and clean houses on weekends," Kate explained. "But I can't save anything. Every penny goes to rent and daycare and food. I'm stuck." Rachel knew that feeling. That trapped, hopeless feeling of wanting more but seeing no way to get there. "Tell me about your kids," Rachel said. Kate's face lit up. "They're everything. My son is 5, my daughter is 3. They're the reason I keep trying." "I understand," Rachel said. And she did. Completely. Kate got the scholarship. So did 12 other people that month. Rachel watched them start school, saw their nervous excitement, and remembered her own first day. It felt like paying forward what Robert had done for her. But it wasn't easy. Rachel struggled to balance school, work at the foundation, and time with Lily. Some days she felt like she was drowning in responsibilities. Old fears crept back in. What if she failed? What if she couldn't handle it all? One particularly bad day, after failing a test and dealing with a difficult situation at the foundation, Rachel sat in her car and cried. She was so tired. Everything was still so hard, just in different ways. Her phone rang. "Robert?" "Hey," she answered, trying to sound normal. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I'm fine." "Rachel, I've gotten pretty good at reading your voice." "What happened?" She told him about the failed test, about feeling overwhelmed, about wondering if she was cut out for any of this. Robert was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Do you know what I admired most about you that night at the station?" "What?" "You didn't give me money because it was easy. You gave it to me because it was right, even though it was hard. You chose the hard thing. That's who you are. You don't take easy paths." "Maybe I should start," Rachel said, half joking. "If you wanted easy, you would have walked past me that night. But you didn't. You're not wired for easy. You're wired for meaningful. And meaningful is always hard." Rachel wiped her eyes. "When did you get so wise?" "When I met someone who reminded me what really matters." That conversation became a turning point. Rachel stopped expecting things to be easy and started appreciating that she could do hard things. She'd been doing hard things for years. This was just a new kind of hard. She studied harder, asked for help when she needed it, and gave herself permission to not be perfect. Slowly, her grades improved. She started to feel like she belonged in nursing school. At the foundation, she learned to trust her instincts. She might not have business experience, but she knew people. She knew struggle, and that counted for something. 6 months in, Robert invited Rachel to speak at a fundraising event for the foundation. The thought terrified her. "I can't speak in front of hundreds of people," she told him. "Just tell your story," Robert said. "That's all anyone wants to hear." The night of the event, Rachel stood backstage in a dress Robert had insisted on buying for her hands shaking. Lily was in the audience with Mrs. Chen, and Robert was introducing her, and she gave me her last $10 without hesitation. Rachel Torres reminded me that kindness isn't about having resources. It's about having heart. "Please welcome her to the stage." Rachel walked out to applause. The lights were bright, and she couldn't see most of the audience. She thought about running. But then she saw Lily in the 3rd row giving her a thumbs up. She told her story. About working 2 jobs, about the night at the station, about making the hardest decision of her life and how it had changed everything, about learning that kindness multiplies, that Robert's kindness to her had allowed her to help dozens of other people. "I'm not special," Rachel said to the crowd. "I'm just someone who decided that being kind was more important than being comfortable. And that one decision changed my entire life. It can change yours too." The applause was deafening. After the event, people came up to her with tears in their eyes, telling her their own stories, thanking her for her courage. Rachel felt something she hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not the shallow kind, but the deep kind. The kind that comes from knowing you've made a real difference. Driving home that night with Lily asleep in the back seat, Rachel thought about the past 6 months. Her life had changed in ways she never could have imagined. But the biggest change wasn't the money or the opportunities. It was believing she deserved them. For years, she'd felt like she was failing, like she wasn't enough, like she was just barely surviving. Now she was thriving, learning, growing, helping others, all because she'd made one kind choice on one terrible night. Rachel pulled into her parking spot and gently woke. "Lily, are we home?" Lily mumbled sleepily. "Yeah, baby. We're home." As she carried her daughter upstairs, Rachel thought about home. It wasn't just a place anymore. It was a feeling, safety, stability, hope. She had all of that now, and she'd never take it for granted. Inside their apartment, Rachel tucked Lily into her purple bedroom and kissed her forehead. "Mom?" Lily said, half asleep. "Yeah, baby?" "I'm proud of you." Rachel felt tears sting her eyes. "I'm proud of you, too." After Lily fell asleep, Rachel sat in the living room with a cup of tea, thinking about everything. The journey wasn't over. She still had 2 years of nursing school. The foundation was still growing. There would be more challenges, more struggles, more hard days. But now she knew something she hadn't known before. She could handle it. She was stronger than she'd ever given herself credit for. And she wasn't alone anymore. Rachel pulled out her phone and texted Robert, "Thank you for everything. For seeing something in me I couldn't see in myself." His response came immediately. "Thank you for reminding me what really matters. You changed my life too, Rachel. Never forget that." Rachel smiled and set down her phone. 6 months ago, she'd been counting her last $10 on a train station bench, wondering how she'd survive the week. Now she was building a life, a real life, with possibilities and hope and a future that looked bright.